educational psychologist that has to be registered, and there is a directory. You do need to check when you're booking them, one, that the assessment they are going to do is going to be tribunal standard, and that they are happy for it to be submitted to tribunal if necessary. And also ask them, even if you're not, have no intention of paying them to come and be a witness on the day, ask them whether they would be prepared to come and witness on the day, because then you know that they're they're going to write a report that they're willing to stand by, they're willing to
if
put in front of a judge. Yeah,
prepared to say that their findings, they're happy to be witness to those and to stand for that the findings that they've made on that report, that report's going to be good.
Yeah.
EP report, it needs to be up to 18 months old in order for that to be tribunal valid.
For parents particularly, EPs have a vast array of remits. And the one we see most and the one we talk about and the one you've probably seen before is a full needs assessment report, because when your child is assessed for an EHC needs assessment, an EP has to do a full assessment of needs, and what's included in that is listed in the code of practice. So it has to include all the elements listed in the code of practice. However, EPs can advise schools, have no named consultations with schools sometimes, offer advice on interventions, offer training around interventions. There's lots of other stuff they do outside of the full needs assessment. And it sounds like your school have asked your EP for kind of a consultation, a discussion about your child, and to have notes of that recorded. Is that useful? Yes, to some degree. It might identify needs and it might identify provisions that aren't already in the EHC plan. It can be used, but it's not going to be a full assessment. It's not going to identify all their needs and all their provisions. And it's not going to, therefore, it's not going to really signpost next provision. So it's not really going to clearly indicate what kind of school or setting you should be looking for that child. So second part of the question, should you be pushing to get something more in depth? Yes. If the school have commissioned it, it's probably going to be more sort of strategic to push the school to push for it, because it's not your assessment. You haven't asked for it or paid for it. So they're not going to be really directed by you. But if the school goes back and says, can you give us some more guidance on X or Y or Z? I think that might be a good way around it. At this stage, this is the $1 million question that people ask us all the time as well about other types of assessment. Do I get my own assessment done? We get asked this constantly. And that's a really difficult one. It's a bit like, it's a bit like a strategy game. If you have to appeal this decision, so if the local authority finalises still naming mainstream school and you have to appeal, your appeal is going to take you a year at the moment. So should you get an independent EP report done now? Independent EP reports are valid for 18 months, as Sarah said, at a tribunal. So there is a risk if you have one done now, today, it's going to be another 4, 5, 6 months before you get your right to appeal. Then you appeal, it's a year to appeal. Your educational psychology report is out of date, or the local authority come and do one a few months before tribunal, which kind of, they can then cast light on yours being old. So you would have to be prepared to go back and get an addendum, an addition. It's not a full assessment again, doesn't cost anywhere near as much, but you'd have to get an update for a tribunal.
That works. I mean, I've done this.
Yeah,
I've done this just over a year ago, and in anticipation of the fact that our private EP report was on the cusp of running out, the tribunal hearing was possibly on about month, I think it was either 19 or 20, and so I just went back to our independent EP and just said to him, can you do an update? And that's exactly what he did. He just did an addition to his previous report. The cost wasn't horrific, but it was absolutely worth it, because when we were at the hearing, he came along as my witness and his information was up to date as of a fortnight previous.
Yeah.
completely worth it, because obviously with my son being the age that he's at, his needs are pretty much there now. But besides from that, it just made a big difference because it was a consistent approach from the same educational psychologist as well. So, he's been our EP since my son was 8, which also helps. But it is, like you say, it's one thing to think about, and it is an additional cost on top of that.
Yeah, and it's not one answer for every family. If money's no object, and some people are in the lucky position where money is no object, have one done now, have an update done before tribunal if you need to get there. If you're having to be a bit more careful about money, think about your timing. Ideally, be researching an EP now.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
know exactly who you're going to go to and what their waiting list is. As you put in the tribunal, book the EP, because you're probably going to wait 6 months anyway, and then the EP report will come good during the wait for tribunal and will be up to date, and you won't have to do an extra. But yeah, so
I
depends on
booked
your
it,
pockets.
yeah, I booked ours in on the premise if it was needed, then the time slot was available to us, and I'm really glad that that's what we did. And it is a stretch financially, but
Some EPs though are asking for cost up front, and like, you, even if no refund on cancellation, shop around,